everyone, welcome to DIY with Nancy. Hope you're all doing well. It's that season where we get to make homemade tomato sauce. And I won't be making it by myself. My father-in-law and mother-in-law will be joining me, as well as my mom and my husband. So it's great way of getting everybody together in making this recipe that was shown to me and my husband by my mother-in-law and father-in-law. And I'm so grateful for them in the sense of taking the time and patience throughout the years on trying to make sure that it's exactly how they make it. Now this recipe was shown to my mother-in-law by her father, and she's telling me these stories about how her father used to show her how to make homemade tomato sauce. And she's passed that on to us, another generation, and hopefully we'll be able to pass it on to our younger generation. I think it's so important that we learn the recipes, the original recipes that were passed on. And it's fun. We're gonna have our family together. I'm gonna show you all the prep work involved, what you need to make the tomato sauce. And of course, I'm gonna make all this tomato sauce by showing you how to make it step by step. So hopefully you can make it as well. For the first step before making the tomato sauce, there is some prep work. Here I have basil. I've had a basil plant, which I've taken the leaves out, I've washed them, and I've placed them on my counter to dry. Now, if you don't have basil from your garden, you can easily buy it at a local grocery store that sells basil plants. Now, these basil leaves will be placed inside the jar to give the tomato sauce some flavor. For the next step, I've prepared by washing the lids and the jars. And these jars are jars that I've used from previous years, and they're mason jars. And here I've set up my tomato machine. This is a Spremy tomato machine, which is compact and you can place it on your table. And this is the pusher for the tomatoes. I will leave a link down below as to where you can purchase the machine. Now this tomato machine will separate the seeds and the peel, which will come from one side. And on this tray, this is where the juice and the pulp of the tomato sauce comes out of. For the next step, I'll be placing one basil leaf in each jar. And like I said earlier, the basil leaves will just give the tomato sauce some flavor. Now, if they're smaller leaves, I add 2, but if they're larger leaves, I just place 1 leaf in each jar. Next, here I have San Marzano tomatoes, and I have 4 bushels. Each bushel is approximately 53 pounds, and each bushel will make approximately 20 1-liter jars of tomato sauce. Next, you want to ensure that you wash the tomatoes. Next, here I'm going through each tomato, removing any stems, and I'm also checking to see if there's any bruised marks on the tomatoes, and if there is, I'm going to be removing it by cutting it out, just as I'm doing here. So here, there's a little bruised mark, and I'm going to cut it out from the tomato, place it back into the basket, and continue removing the little bruised marks from the tomatoes. Now I'll continue doing that with each tomato, going through each and every one of them, and then rinsing it again with water. For the next step, I'm going to cut the tomatoes in half, or you can cut them in 4, and place them into a large pot, just as I'm doing here. Now you can see I filled the pot halfway, not completely full. I'm going to take some of the tomatoes and squeeze them and create some juice, so that way when I place it on the stove, it doesn't stick to the bottom. Next, you want to place your pot of tomatoes over the stove on a medium heat. Now you want to keep stirring it, you want to make sure it doesn't get stuck to the bottom. And the whole idea is to soften the tomatoes. So you're going to simmer it for about 8 to 10 minutes until the tomatoes get softened and you'll see that the juice starts forming. Now ideally, you'll have more than one pot going at the same time. Just keep mixing them, keeping an eye on them, and then once they're done, as far as being softened, you'll see that the juice is starting to form and they'll start softening, and then you can walk it over to the tomato machine. Here's my father-in-law Enzo stirring the tomatoes, making sure they're softened, at which point he'll walk them over to my husband Dominic at the tomato machine. After 8 to 10 minutes having the tomatoes cook over the stove, this is what your tomatoes should look like before you run it through the tomato machine. Next, I'm placing the boiled tomatoes into the tomato machine. So I'm using a ladle to put all the tomatoes into the bowl, or hopper is what it's called, and I'm going to use the pusher to push the tomatoes through the machine. Now there's two bowls, so the tray is where the juice and the pulp of the tomato is coming from, so this one here, and then the second bowl is for the peel and the seeds of the tomato. So they're both being divided by the machine. Now the seeds and the peel don't go to waste. You're going to run it through the machine 2 more times. There's still a lot of pulp and juice in the peel and seeds of the tomato. So we're going to run it by the machine an additional 2 times. So here I am running the seeds and peel through the first time. And I'm running the seeds and the peels the second time. I've now run the peel and the seeds in the machine 2 times, and now I can throw this in the waste. Ideally, it's great to have more than one set of hands when making tomato sauce, so here I have my husband at the tomato station helping out. My husband Dominic's in charge of running the tomatoes through the tomato machine, with my father-in-law Enzo helping out.
It's beautiful, this sauce.
At this point, the tomato sauce is now ready to be poured into the jars. As the bowl gets full of tomato sauce, I start pouring it into a bigger pot, just as I'm doing here. Before I fill the jars with tomato sauce, I'm going to give it one last quick stir. Now I'm ready to remove the sauce and pour it into the glass jars. I'm using a measuring cup, and here I have a funnel. And this funnel just protects the jar from getting dirty with all the sauce, and it fits perfectly on there. So I will leave a link down below on the description as to where you can purchase this funnel. I just want to show you that I fill the tomato sauce right to the top of the jar, and now I'm ready to place the lid onto the jar. Now you want to make sure that you secure the lid on the jar very tight. Once your tomato sauce are in the jars and tightly sealed, you will place them in a big pot. Now I have 2 going. I have one in my upstairs kitchen and one in the downstairs kitchen. And now I'm going to be placing the jars of tomato sauce in this very large pot that I will also be filling with water. So I'm going to show you exactly how to fill the jars in the pot and how much water you will need. Now this step is taken so we can sterilize the jars and preserve the tomato sauce. Now once you have all the jars in the pot, you're going to fill the water right to the top, making sure that the jars are completely covered. After 45 minutes, turn off the heat, let the water cool, and at that point you can remove the tomato sauce jars from the pot. My mother-in-law Enza is helping with cutting all the tomatoes. Here's my mom Lucia, also helping with cutting all the tomatoes. That's how I make homemade tomato sauce. Now I want to thank my mother-in-law and father-in-law, as well as my mom and my husband for helping out today. You will see that each of the bushels that we make, so for each bushel, you'll make approximately 21 liter jars of tomato sauce. Now the tomato sauce in itself is not seasoned. We season it when we cook it. So if you want to see how I cook the tomato sauce, you can go to the pasta shells with ricotta and spinach. That's one of the recipes I have on DIY with Nancy, and I show you how to cook the tomato sauce. So I just want to thank everyone for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, don't forget to like and subscribe. And until next time, everyone, thank you so much for watching. Take care.